Hi folks, let's have a look at resizing our files. So here we have our PDF of our layout. Now this is the front view, so it is not mirrored. If we want to print this, we'll be printing it in two sections. We want it to be size, and we want it to be either 100% or the actual size. I use actual size generally. I don't use shrinking. Make sure it's the actual size. So there we have our size. They're both the same. 100% and actual size are both the same. I truly do use actual size, and I make sure my paper is portrait, and I make sure that my printer is set for US letter size. If you're printing on A4, that's fine, or just print further up in the page, it's fine. But letter size is what I've chosen. So we have our first page, and we have our second page. Then we go to print. It will give you some little crosshairs, and I'm going to talk about crosshairs quite a lot because they're important. So when we want to change the size of something, if we want to make it smaller, we use our custom scale. So if we want to make it 75%, it will still give you 2 pages because that's how it's set out, but it will be shrunk. Let's have a look at our pattern. So this is the one that we use the mostly, will be the mirrored. When we come to print it, this is on one piece of paper, so it's 100% or it's the actual size. And we will want to, if we want to scale it, again, we will just use our custom scale, and we can bring it down to 50%. Now, if you see, 50% is not what you think. 50% takes it to the quarter of the page. So it means that it's actually scaling down a little bit more than what you would expect from your 100%. So if you're wanting it to actually bring it down to what we have in our headers 50%, I think you'd probably be looking more so at 75%. So I put my number in, and then I click on the photo. Okay, so I put the number and click on the photo. If I was going to put in 200%, it will enlarge it, but it will only give me 2 pages because it's only operating on 2 pages unless we select poster. So a poster will be what we do when we click on the screen. What we do when we make a user address pattern that's been PDF'd, it will give you a whole lots of pieces of paper. So there's 6 pieces of paper there, which will be joined together at little crosshair marks. And then we stick them together, and that will be 200%. So that will be quite a big design, which we'd use if we were making a flag or signage on the side of something. So again, if we are going to posterize something like this, see, we've got some blank spots on our paper. They will be included. The software is not capable of excluding those blank sections. It's not that clever. So this is going to use 12 pieces of paper, and yet 4 of them will have nothing printed on them except for little crosshairs in the corners, alas. But that's the way that PDF software works. So those sections there will only have little wee crosshairs on them, alas. And it'll be in 3 of the corners. So posterizing means putting many sheets together. And because this file originally started as 2 pieces, or 2 pieces of paper, it will use those 2 pieces of papers. You can click in the squares and make them, enlarge them to see what details there are there. But at 200%, there's quite a lot of detail visible already. So if we go back to size, actual size, it's just 2 sheets of paper. If we go to postering at 200%, that's just off my head, 200%, it will end up using 6 pieces of paper for one side and 6 pieces of paper for the other. So really, when you look at it, 200% is 6 times bigger than your actual size. in reality. So it's not difficult to get your head around once you've done it. So visually, what we've got here is we've got our layout not mirrored PDF, and that is what's going to give you the pieces of pattern to create your applique. So what you see in the picture is what we've actually got in the cloth. So that one is not mirrored. And then we also have one which is mirrored, so it's the exact opposite to that PDF, and that is going to be the reverse of it. And to use that, there wouldn't be very many times where you actually would use the mirrored layout PDF unless you were going to be drawing on the back of the fabric to do reverse applique or something like that. It's not very often that you would actually use that, unless it was a design that didn't have a letter, an alphabet letter, unless it was a design that didn't that you could flip and then make a symmetrical pattern. So here is my printed out enlarged or scaled up 200% layout. Now you can see that I've got 4 sheets for the top, 4 sheets for the bottom. I did have another 2 sheets at the top, another 2 sheets at the bottom, but there was nothing on them. It was just those little corner crosshair marks. So the little crosshair marks are these little things here. That's what we line up each piece of paper with, so as we know that it's going to keep the same size. So that piece, little crosshair there, will go to the crosshair on that one. So they sit on top of each other to make sure that we're keeping the right size. It'll be very easy to actually skew it. So what we do is we just trim. I trim off a piece against the edge of the crosshair, just so I can just see it. Just trim a little slither off. It's about 1/4 of an inch when you've enlarged it. Now, when you're joining a pattern piece, it's less. It's only about 1/8 of an inch. And so I put my marks together, and then I stick along the lines, like you do in a dressmaking pattern if you were downloading it digitally. So we just keep all those marks in line. And then once this is finished, we can actually transfer these markings out to a fabric so we know where to lay out our pieces. So we just make sure our lines are, our crosshairs are on each other and our lines are all lined up. And then once we've got the 2 horizontal ones done, we're going to do the vertical ones. So crosshair to crosshair, trim off. We're going over 2 pieces of paper, so crosshair to crosshair. And then we will again mark our top and bottom crosshairs, and you can see it's formed the pattern very, very easily. There's a bit of work involved in this, but I mean, it says there's a bit of work involved with everything. It means that you can print this out and do this at home. Now the size paper that we're using is letter size, and so that's basically a US letter, because that's the standard that we're working to. If you're printing out on an A4, it will print out the same. It won't scale it. It will just have more margin around the edge. So you can see that my top that's scaled up and the top of that one, which is actual, the 100%, is exactly the same, but just really, really much, much bigger. So we do half, and then we do the bottom half. So again, this one has got the big numbered crosshairs at the end, so it hasn't given you the corners like you'd expect. So so when it comes to this, rather than using the crosshairs, I just go to the tip of the printing. It will line up because we have the 2, 2, 2 and 2 on one side and 1, 1, 1, 1 on the other side, and they will line up. See the 2's on top of the 2's? Just keep that symmetrical. Make sure our lines join. It's very clever how the actual software that we use does break this up beautifully, and I've never struck it to be out of alignment at all, ever. So it's very clever. The PDF, while we're using Adobe Acrobat Reader, the PDF software is not quite as clever, but it is freeware, and it's a universal software that everybody uses on their PC, and I also use it on my Mac as well. So the one on top of the one, make sure our lines sit on top of each other. I just put my corner of my ruler on there as a weight. So there we have our next section joined on, and so on. So this is when we've got our 4 sections, well, 8 sections joined together, or give us a 200% enlargement of our actual design. So if I place the design on top, you'll see how bigger the scale is. So the 200% is 4 times bigger than that one which we printed originally. So you can scale up and you can scale down depending on what you want, but you just have to be consistent. If you've scaled up your layout PDF 200%, you have to scale up your pattern pieces 200%, so as that they all fit together. It would be very rare that you would do 200%, but I wanted to show you this. So let's have a look at dealing with a cut file. So an SVG file is a file which is made through the software, and it's an international cutting file. So it's a scalable vector graphic. Now we're using Canvas, the brother Canvas here, to show you as an example. So they do have a map which is 12 inches by 24. So in this situation, you would actually want to use the bigger mat because we've got bigger pieces, because that E, when it's scaled 200%, it will be bigger than the 12 by 12 mat, so that will be impossible to use that. So you'd have to resize it less than 200%. Maintaining an aspect ratio means that the width and the height will be maintained at the same percentage of growth. So width-wise and length-wise, it will grow the same amount. Want to get rid of my outside square there, so all I've done is just hit that layer and deleted it. And I can move my pieces up here, so my E's at the top. So I would have my fabric scanned on my mat, so you would see a silhouette of my fabric, and I'd place my cutting lines of the E and the carrot and its leaves, the foliage, on top of those pieces of fabric. So let's just start that again, and let's just grab our pattern pieces this time. Okay, so here are our pattern pieces, and this is what we'd be actually looking at, because we generally use the mirrored file for pattern pieces. Resize, going up 200%. So there it goes there. I can pull my pieces away. Click outside, then click the piece. So there's our pieces there, which is fine, absolutely fine, until, let's show you on the 12-inch mat. See how the E is too big for the mat. Now, you're not allowed to go outside the dotted perimeter in the Canvas software. Canvas is a software which is made for several brands. But Canvas Workspace is the brother brand, but they all work in the same way, absolutely the same way. So that's been resized. So there is an issue. If you resize something up to a particular amount in Canvas, and then you want to say, oh, I don't want it to be that big. When you go back to resizing it, it's seeing the image at 100%, which is not ideal. I think it's better to actually start from scratch, because you don't know how this is going to actually relate to your layout. Now, it's safer to use the same proportions as your layout in your Adobe Acrobat Reader and your Canvas workspace. It's safer to do it the same size. So, oops, not 490. Let's try 200, 190. Okay, so 190 is probably still just outside, and you can't really tell until so you can see it's just crossing those red lines. So when you try and export the file, it will say that your image is outside your parameter. You can just see it there. Even if I try and adjust it, so if I went to export, some objects are outside the red dashed line on the artboard, so that means that I cannot use that site. It needs to come down even smaller. So it is safer to actually start again and then resize. Okay, so that was 190, let's go 185 or something. Right. It's safer to start at the actual size rather than fiddling with the sizes you've already adjusted. You know where you are then. So that's sitting within that boundary quite happily. Okay, it's not crossing the dotted lines. It won't export because I've got these pieces here still active. So let me delete those, and then it says export. Oops, where am I? Oh, on the far left side. Bring that out. There we go. So I was quite happy with that. So that's done that. So you'd have to do it in several bytes when you're using the 12 by 12 or something this big. But that's fine. That's what you'd expect to do if you're making flag size products.